Good morning. Well, we've been looking at the tabernacle and we've been listening to the laws that Moses gave to the people. I want to go back a little bit, though, before these laws were given. The people who had gathered at Mount Sinai and Moses, who had brought these people out into the wilderness, was trying to govern them. At that time, we're told, Moses' father-in-law came to visit him. His father-in-law was Jethro. He was a priest of Midian. And for reasons we don't understand, Moses had sent his wife and his sons back to live with his father-in-law while he was dealing with the problems in Egypt. Perhaps he was worried for their safety, we don't know. But they'd been sent home for a while to be with Zipporah's father. Now Jethro hears that he's led these people out of Egypt, and he comes to visit him, bringing Zipporah and bringing his sons with him. When he comes, he watches to see what is happening. And Moses is trying to help the people to decide what to do and when to do it. And he takes him aside and he says, Moses, if you carry on like this, you'll never be able to do it. You have to set up a system of government by which you can govern the people and they can receive answers to their needs. And he advises him to set up judges. Each judge would have 1,000 people under him. And then under that judge, there would be others who would have different numbers of people, right the way down until every particular household was represented. If a household had a problem, they could report it to their local judge. If the local judge could not solve the problem, he'd hand it up the line. And gradually the problem would go up the line further and further until the problems that couldn't be sorted out in any other way were presented to Moses. It is, in fact, a fantastic idea of government which hadn't existed before. We have to realize that this had not existed in the past. In the past, all the leaders were autocrats. The king said what he wanted, and that was it. For a person to actually reach the king with a petition was a very difficult thing indeed. Now, suddenly, there is communication throughout the whole camp, and everybody feels that somehow they have a say in what's going on. If they want it, they can hand it on. It can be discussed in small groups, then handed on to a larger group, then to a larger group, until it came before Moses himself. Now, amazingly, this form of government amongst the people continued for many years. If you look forward, for instance, you come to the book of Joshua. But after the book of Joshua, you come to the book of Judges. And what is happening is some of these judges would sometimes rise to prominence, and they would become warrior judges as well as governing the people. And as we read the book of Judges, we come across one after the other who was acting in this particular way. You may wonder what they were doing there, but they were people who were elected for a particular role, whose role suddenly might change as they became leaders of armies and people who could actually work on behalf of the people. When we come to the book of Kings, we find there that the people have been using this system for a long time. And they come before the great prophet Samuel, and they say, we have this system of government, but we would prefer to be like the other nations. We would prefer to have our own king. And Samuel says to them, well, this system has worked, because in this system you are working under God, you're doing it God's way. No other people say, we want a king. And Samuel, going before God, said, what should we do about this? And God says, yes, give them a king that they're looking for at this time. And of course, then the whole system of government changed. Samuel explains to the people what would be required of them if they had a king, and they say, yes, that's what we want. And eventually, if you read the Old Testament, you find he chose Saul, the first king of Israel. Saul reigned for many years, but then he died in battle, and David took over from him. The great Davidic kingdom was a very powerful kingdom, and after him, his son Solomon took over. It was the golden age, in a sense, of the Israelite history. But after Solomon, his son, well, there were problems, and the whole kingdom divided. and you can read the story in the book of Kings, how this actually happened. They divided and became two kingdoms, a northern kingdom and a southern kingdom. They were good kings, they were bad kings, but the two kingdoms existed alongside each other. And then, of course, Assyria came in and literally deported the northern kingdom and destroyed it. And the southern kingdom, well, that went into captivity as well under Nebuchadnezzar. When the people of Israel came back from their captivity, they came back, but they no longer set up a kingdom. They came back and they set up another system very similar to the one that Moses set up, a great Sanhedrin, a great place of counseling, 70 great elders and a prince of elders amongst them, Manasseh amongst them, who would be able to govern the people. Again, they were looking for the system that Moses set up here in the wilderness, a system which was very effective and a system which has been used since by many peoples. But again, you must remember, this is the first time that this form of democracy had been, in fact, used by the people. It was the first time God released this idea through Moses for his people, which is a great blessing to them. Amen.